Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Monday morning trading session. Hold on 1 second here. There we go. I was having a little trouble with the screen share, but I think it's working now. All right, for those of you new to our trading room, welcome. What you're looking at here is the diversified trading system on the NASDAQ market. I'm also running crude oil and the euro dollar, the 6E. For you Forex traders, will be the same as the euro US dollar pair. And in case you don't recognize it the way I have my charts laid out, I've got the Hawk Scalper here on the top left, Falcon Swing Trader top right, Eagle Trend Trader bottom left, and of course the Raptor here on the bottom right. We just saw the market open to yet another gap. You can see even in the overnight we took a little bit of a gap up. But trading left off around the 55.85 area on Friday, and here we are opening at around 56.01, 5600. So we've got a little bit of a gap below the market yet again. So we'll see. We'll stay with the market. We had a macro pullback signal here on the Hawk right out of the open, and it looks like that has since found its profit objective. But as a rule of thumb, I prefer to give the market a couple of minutes to settle in. Before I jump on board. But here the Hawk also the Falcon also producing a continuation signal. We would call this our trend line touch signal. So there are a couple of opportunities if you wanted to be first in line this morning. Thanks, Steve. Steve says, we got manufacturing numbers at the top of the hour and the Treasury releasing some notes at around 7:45 this morning. That would be Pacific time. I'm always curious when we get a gap like this to start the day, whether the market's going to try to fill that gap or if it's more of an acceleration gap. In which case, we would expect the rally to continue. So here on the Hawk, we have what could be considered a 4-arrow consolidation of sorts. The second signal did not print, but it still is producing a plethora of signals. There's your 50-cent word for the day. Do I really want to start off the day this way? All right. Essentially, what I'm doing is rather than take the entry right at the hash mark, I'm going to allow the market to break this morning's high even though chances are pretty good if I do get filled at the hash mark, I will get filled at this level as well. I've got my eye on the hawk, waiting for a possible reversal signal. So, excuse me, this particular level that we are at 5,600, pretty sensitive number, I think. Now, we haven't seen the pre-signal yet to suggest that a soft edge sell is possible. However, we do have a trend. We're testing the extreme right now of the trend. If the trend fails at this point and produces a sell signal, that would in fact be a soft edge sell. So be interesting to see here in a couple of minutes who will actually gain control of the market, the buyers or the sellers. And right now, the buyers pressing a little bit harder. All right. Now I'm going to, because it's my first trade of the morning and I'm looking for some initial momentum, I'm going to try to run out this trade. I'm also just running a single contract. Come on, don't stop now. All right, I think it's probably time to entertain another stop. All right, well, there's a few things here suggesting the NASDAQ might press higher still. Rather than the counter trend signal, the Raptor actually produced our cloud crossover signal. I didn't even notice that was happening. But in fact, the clouds did cross and prices retreated into the cloud. There is the cloud crossover signal. For you crude oil oil traders. Crude has been so terribly quiet of late that I've actually moved it to my faster settings. I'm using it now on the alternate settings, the 446 settings, just to give some sort of opportunity. Well, I'm not liking how they're taking their time here. I may end up having to go with a much more aggressive stop. If we don't see some follow through here. The funny thing is, had I taken the signal on the hash mark, I think it hit its high probability target. Yes, it did. So because I delayed my entry a little bit, now I'm still in this trade. And I don't feel much like riding out a big swing. I would very much like to see at least one more bullish bar just to show me that the buyers have come back in. That would make it a little bit easier for me to roll my stop to this swing point right here. This little intermediate swing. Come on, buyers. For those of you watching crude oil, Daniel says there's a potential 4-arrow consolidation on crude oil right now. Okay, I'm going to inch my stop in a little bit here. I got that one bullish bar that I was looking for, and I am squeezing this trade pretty hard, I'll admit. Come on. So let's see, where are they holding up now? 56, 56.05 half. So that's what we're looking to break. There's 04 half, 04 3/4. Oh, come on. 4 3/4. There it is, 05. 05 quarter. 05 half. They kissed it. Come on. You can do it. What I wouldn't like to see is this turn into a double top. Okay, so there's 0.575, but every time it taps it, seems the sellers knock them down a little bit, but at least they traded a tick or two above the last high of the morning. All right, they're trying hard. I was checking the other tools to make sure we had complementary signals, which we do. The only bird that hasn't given us a signal yet is the eagle. But at least it's also looking bullish. My goodness, we're really having to work for every tick here. It's not that I'm expecting a monster breakout, but it would at least be nice to get this trade to break even. Although Stephen did say there was a manufacturing report at the top of the hour. All right, I do believe we've hit our, yes we have, we just hit our high probability profit objective. If you were inclined to take profit on target, you can rest easy now. Come on. I am so tempted to get this trade to break even, and I'm doing my best to resist over tweaking the trade. which is, if you've spent any time in the trading room with me at all, you know is a bad habit of mine. So I've set the stop strategy to parabolics now, and I'm looking for this bar to finish on the high, in which case we're going to automatically roll into the suggested parabolic stop. Come on. Good question here from Tony. Tony asks, since you've moved your crude oil to the alternate settings, the faster settings, would you change your Raptor as well? Yes, I did. I moved the crude oil Raptor to the faster settings as well. Natalia, you're asking the question of the ages. Natalia says, good morning, Eric. Well, good morning, Natalia. How to identify early a sideways market? Well, with the hawk, what I tend to look for is I tend to look for these clusters of yellow bars, especially when they're starting to print at more or less the same price level. That's kind of a giveaway that the market may be starting to move sideways. The other clue really is just that, you know, prices start trading over top of each other. I would not classify this as a sideways market just yet, but it is a painfully slow uptrend. And the reason I would say it's not a sideways market just yet is because the most basic definition of a trend is in an uptrend, you make new highs and you honor the lows, right? You've heard that before. Higher highs, higher lows. And so far, so good. We're still doing that. We're making higher highs, we're making higher lows. Before a market can go sideways or even reverse on itself, it has to reverse that process. So here in a downtrend, of course, the opposite is true. We're going to, boy, I got to go back here quite a ways. All right, higher highs, higher lows. Before a market can reverse or go sideways, it has to reverse this process and it has to start making lower lows and lower highs. Now, at this point, it's impossible to say, has the trend reversed or will the market go sideways? But as soon as you start to see lower lows and the highs holding, then you may assume that the market may be transitioning now to a downtrend. But once this pattern starts to break up and you start making, you know, higher highs, higher lows without any follow through, then you may assume that the market is moving into a sideways pattern. So we're looking for a series to develop. Higher highs, higher lows means uptrend. Lower highs, lower lows means downtrend. When we get a mixed bag, then we can be reasonably sure the market may continue sideways. But yeah, it's a tough question, Natalia. It really is. It's sure, Tony. Tony says, "Can I see your Raptor crude oil chart?" 1 second, I gotta find it here. Where'd I put it? There it is. I got so many charts on the go. All right, there you go, Tony. So we're running a 4-tick brick. Our Raptor settings, we're going to change the cloud to a 6 and a 4. And our Hawk brick size, we will reduce to a 4. I've also, the soft edge parameters, I've beefed up to the 1.25. So a little bit of a mess here in crude oil. When you get this kind of thing going on as well, not so much with the continuation signals. So you're printing a trend change signal, a hard edge bounce signal. Those are at least heading the same direction. But if we were flip-flopping here all the time, if we printed a 1, a 3, a 2, a 3, a 2, a 3, again, that's suggestive of a sideways market. We're printing these signals, but there's no follow-through. We're not getting that nice higher high, higher low kind of thing. The other thing to bear in mind that I've mentioned before, but a lot of people aren't aware of, is that most times when a market is moving sideways and it tries to break out, that breakout will actually fail, which is why I always suggest, if you suspect the market is sideways, your best plan is to let the market break out, look for a retest, and then look for your signal to buy. Because at least 75% of the time when the market breaks out, that breakout will fail and the market will move either back into the trading range or try to break out the other side. All right, I think oops, I should have got back here a little bit faster. Did I get a break even? Oh, I did. Haha. All right, well, I would have done better going all in, all out, but I'll make a note of that in my trading journal. Another thing I suppose you could do to anticipate a sideways market is just the pace of the thing. Ray Burke was always big on that. He liked to see, he was always more comfortable with a brisk market. But then, of course, you had to know Ray. He's definitely a type A personality. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but Ray likes to get things done. Let's go. Let's get busy. Well, I never thought of that, Floyd. Of course, you're right. Floyd says May 1st today it's a holiday in a lot of parts of the world. It may be affecting the U.S. market. Yes, you're probably correct on that. All right, so what I'm thinking now is if it doesn't want to go up, does it want to come back down? Maybe get into that gap after all? We did manage to get to our next resistance line here at 5607 before. Kind of put the brakes on it. Oops. Oh, doggone it. Come over here. All right, so we may be getting a teeny tiny test of the extreme here now. Please don't tell me I got stopped early again. We do need, or I need to see the buyers give up here somewhere. They gotta make a decent effort, and then the sellers need to take it away. I'm not sure I've ever seen warning dot after warning dot after warning dot without any follow through. That's a little unusual, a new look. So it doesn't look like um, the report at the top of the hour did much. To spark the market, I mean. here we sit. I may have to start watching the mid-cap. Again, Floyd says, big move in the mid-cap. That's the EMD for those of you interested. The NASDAQ normally showing us a little bit more volatility than what we're seeing here. All right, no signal just yet, but obviously we've seen at least one bar close a little bit more bearish. It's looking also like that 4-arrow consolidation on crude oil that Daniel pointed out is getting a little bit of follow through. Hooray! Oh, you stinkers. All right, well, here we're getting a soft edge sell signal now. It's a little bit more aggressive than I would normally like. Normally I wouldn't go in on a counter trend trade for the full amount, but this has potential. Well, I guess they all have potential, don't they? Come on. Tony says the NASDAQ has broken its short-term trend line. What I'm really hoping for is a fill of the gap. That would really make my morning today. Even if we got halfways into the gap, say even down to the first resistance line here at 55.92.5, the primary resistance, I'd be tickled pink at 55.86 3/4. Thank goodness we have our bid and ask bar, because right now I would normally be checking my connection. Is this thing still on? Did I drop my connection? So when you're looking for a counter trend signal, obviously you first need a trend. And it should be a fairly obvious trend. It shouldn't be one of these trends that you're left scratching your head. Is the market really trending or isn't it? I think, here from Friday afternoon through the overnight to this morning, I do believe that qualifies as a trend. Our cloud, a little bit broader, which we'd like to see as well. And then, of course, that all-important test at the extreme, which developed rather quickly, but it was still enough to satisfy the parameters for the trade, or for the signal anyway. And as I mentioned, normally with counter trend signals, I don't go in too heavy because, hey, they're counter trend and the market may well reverse and pick up the trend. Normally I'll throw a single on it. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, well, my risk has not been exorbitant. But I have capped my risk on the trade. And with a little bit of luck, we'll see the market tail off here, hit the profit objective, and then maybe I'll have an additional contract that I can leave on as a runner. Mr. Buckaloo has a question here about, Eric, I noticed that the Falcon filter will sometimes go gold in color as if it's in a consolidation area. Is that true? None of the other bird filters do this. No, that is correct. The Falcon does have that third color to it right there, that little gold bar. And it's essentially showing you a very, very neutral market. For the most part, the filters are a momentum gauge of sorts. So if the bands are green and getting wider, the market tends to be more bullish. If they're red and getting wider, the market tends to be more bearish. That gold one, very much like on the Hawk, just shows a dead neutral market. Now, you rarely will see a gold band for more than 2 or 3 bars. I don't think I've ever seen one larger than that. But yeah, that's what it signifies. Natalia asked, Eric, my Raptor didn't print a number 2 signal. Do you have the default settings or custom? On my Raptor, most of my Raptors, I have changed the soft edge cell signal to 1.25. Now, Remember, your Raptor signals are prompts. It's useful for you to know as well how the signal develops. In other words, with a counter trend signal, I was looking for a trend and then a test of the extreme, and that confirms my counter trend signal, right? So here's my trend. It developed very quickly, but this is my test of the extreme, and there's my counter trend signal. Now the Raptor programming seems to concur, even though I'm getting yet another test of the extreme at this point. And that's, I suppose, not unusual, given that this one was so quick. The buyers are probably really asking themselves, really, was that really a test of the extreme? Is that really all we can do? If you are running the default settings at 1.01, providing this little retest holds, you will probably print a number 2 signal on the next sell signal. This is actually, or could be, a better defined signal than the one that I took. I'm not liking how the buyers are showing up here. The Geiger counter was pulled hard over to the buy side there and had quite a bit of stickiness to it. Now, see, there they are again. Obviously, I would expect the sellers to show up as we get closer to the highs. And, well, if they don't, I guess I'm going to take one on the chin. Little love tap. All right, so this is a little bit more of a textbook test of the extreme. It's not confirmed yet. We do have the swing in there, but this next bar needs to trade lower. And that will confirm our test of the extreme. Yet another very balanced market. There's trading going on, as you can see, the very, very even though. Oh, there we go. It actually ticked up and tick down. So there's some trading there, but I am really looking for a break of the low. That's really what I would like to see. Yeah. Tony summing up this very quiet, boring market today says, meanwhile, back at the ranch. Yes, from those old westerns, eh? Meanwhile, back at the ranch, something was cooking, and it wasn't chicken. It was trouble. Dum dum dum. Oh, come on. Well, I'm halfway tempted to roll my stop in here above 56.07, but honestly, for the 2 points for the extra $40, I may just leave it where it is. Muy importante that we see the market stay below 56.02. Why is that, you ask? Well, if we can't, if we're going to make another higher swing here, then that's more characteristic of an uptrend than a downtrend. Don't tell me that, Tony. Tony says we got a late filter entry. Oh, but it's a little bit more bearish. Getting spoiled now to the upside. The hawk starting to produce a bunch of yellow bars. Technically, we are looking at if you want it to be looking for a reason to get long, we just had a mini double pullback in the NASDAQ. Oh, get away from there. And that is the joy of counter-trend trading. No love from the NASDAQ today. Now watch, now that they've hit my stops there, watch them put in a nice little reversal. Yeah, it's kind of stuck here for the moment. Eagle looking a little bit more bullish. This is actually the first in-sync signal. How has the Eagle been holding up with the choppiness that we've been seeing? Thursday was a good day. Wednesday, not so much. Tuesday was all right. Monday, it was a struggle, but it looks like at least it stayed on the right side. They're hardly showing us anything more than a scalp profit. Which is just a little bit annoying. Well, look at that. A little bit of a uptick. Floyd, you're right. Floyd says crude oil is moving. The YM moved earlier. Even gold, everything but the NASDAQ. And it is very unlike the NASDAQ. Uh, Daniel asks, that recent move, was that a late filter entry signal or was that something else? You know, Daniel, when the market is this messed up, it's hard to get, or it seems it's hard to get a clean signal. I would not have classified this as a late filter entry. Ideally, the late filter entry is like this. Your filter goes out of sync, comes back into sync. Your trend line, however, never changes color. The trend line does have a tendency to go relatively flat during a late filter entry. Not always, but many times. And it is a high probability signal in the right environment. And I know it's upsetting when you're looking at a trade and you're thinking, gee, I could have picked up a couple of bucks there. But what we've been seeing this last week or so is not the norm. You know, the market is definitely out of sorts. I'm sure, you know, there's a lot of factors. I'm sure a lot of it is geopolitical. Um, I'm sure a lot of it is, you know, first quarter earnings. There could be a few things weighing on the market this way. Oops. But it is uncommon to see the NASDAQ this quiet. Every bar is a struggle, though. Have we been able to, you know, string together any kind of rally? I guess out of the open, we rallied for 15 or 20 minutes, and then we saw the market reverse on itself for about 10 minutes or so. we're seeing, the current highs holding, maybe temporarily. Not much to talk about, really. The other markets have all kind of fallen flat now, too, so we're kind of in a holding pattern. I'm not sure we're going to get another signal here this morning, truth be told. If the markets don't come around soon. Oh, sorry about that. Seems my wife has been busy with the online shopping. The FedEx guy was just here. Well, the bulls haven't let go of the market yet. That's pretty impressive. Yeah, Aspen says she wants to spend the money you made on the Raptor. Yeah, what was that? A whole $5? um, Stephen, these kinds of trades look better in hindsight. Stephen's asking uh, that second Raptor signal that we had here at 726, would that be considered a high probability uh, trade? At the time, when it's building, at this point in time, you could call it an early trend change signal. But if you're just looking, you know, you would call it an early trend change signal if you're just looking for a reason to get long the market. You do have a buy signal, no question there. You do have the most of the components for a trend change signal, but they're developing a little bit early. In other words, you have this little up, down, up pattern. Now, normally, this up, down, up pattern happens more like this, where the first up changes the trend line, and then you get the down, and then you get the up. At this point, it's safer to buy. But you can see even here, sometimes it develops a little bit faster. You get the up, the down, the up, the trend line, everything is in sync. So it is a valid signal. However, it is a more difficult signal to take real time. Now, I suppose the good thing about this particular signal is you could have covered the trade relatively close. Even if you went 2 swings back and covered it here. Again, given today's market conditions, I don't think I would have gone in for the full 2 contracts. But, we saw a decent rally out of it, to be sure. But I think it's one of those trades that's a little easier to see in hindsight than in real time. Usually, I think you'll be better off waiting for the proper signal to develop, even though it can mean a lot of waiting sometimes. Just sitting around waiting for the market to comply. So we've been essentially in an uptrend since the open, so almost an hour and a half. Oh, yes, here we go. Daniel says, what about that first micro-macro cross signal that we're looking at? It is a valid first micro-macro cross. Yes, sir. We just have the warning dots at the moment. We don't have the completed signal yet. The problem with this one is covering the trade. Ideally, I want to go 2 swings back. So this would be swing number 1. That would be swing number 2. The reason, of course, is when the market rallies like this, if we said this is our sideways trading range, we are likely to see a little bit of a pullback. Now, will it develop into a macro pullback? Well, that's hard to say, but we do need to plan for it, right? I don't want to set up my trade like this and then get taken out only to see the market make a macro pullback and then continue on without me. So normally we want to place our stops a little bit deeper. And that would be the challenge with this first micro-macro cross signal. Now you could enter here. To make it a little bit more predictable, you could enter above the high. That would make it easier to cover here. That would work. Yeah, that would work actually. That's about the only signal we have going right now, isn't it? Well, kind of a weak start to the week. Hey, way to go, Tony. Tony took this first in-sync signal. Nicely done, Tony. And it looks like it just kissing the profit objective, so maybe Tony got a favorable fill on it or got out a little bit earlier, but you can see here trade forecaster saying scalp mode for about 38 minutes, and we've definitely been seeing a lot of that, a lot of sideways scalpy style trading. All right, well, there's that first micro-macro cross signal. Looks like took a slip on it as well. And I will try one more time to run this out a little bit. The market just seems very, very thin to me. Well, that's one way to make the market reverse. Just buy into it. Look at that. You stinkers. Come on. Well, look at that. It's actually up a couple ticks in my favor. Woohoo! Oh, dear. Oh, my God. All right. Well, folks, I think we're going to button up the room here a little bit. I don't think there's a whole lot else going on here. No, not yet. So I'm going to try to nurse this trade a little bit further, at least try to get it into a break-even situation. and hopefully it might even get to into a profit zone. I will catch you again tomorrow morning. We'll do it all over again. Bye for now.